So what is testing? You all know about testing. Testing means you are going to test a software, right? So while you are testing it, you are identifying errors. Whether if there are any errors in that, that is what software testing. That you all know that. But actually, what is software testing is whether the software product which you have implemented matches the expected requirements. Right? What is that expected requirements? So you may have designed a SRS document, right? You may have designed a SRS document. So whether the developed software product meets the SRS document, that we have to check, right? While checking that SRS document, right, whether the software meets the SRS document, right, and you will be checking whether is there any defect. So you are checking the expected requirements, and it should be, that is, the software should be defect free. This is what we call the software testing, right? So the two major part, it should matches the expected requirements, and it should ensure it should be defect free. Okay. So how to do the testing, right? How to do this? So there are two ways to test, right? One is you can test it manual, or you can test it in a automation tool. So both are possible, right? So normally how the software will be, of components, right? Modules or components, whatever it is, right? So each modules or each components can be tested separately based on manual testing, or you can script it, right? If you are going to do repeated tests, right? And you can then you feel that you can able to script it, means you can script it, right? So the using automation tools, right, to evaluate one or more properties of interest. So this is what the basic idea of testing, right? Fine. Okay, so well and good. Let us move on, right? What is the purpose of testing? Right. First thing is identify errors. That is what I told. And second is gaps, right? Is there any gaps? Or you can call it as a missing requirements in contrast to the actual requirements. See, that is very important. See, you have the requirement SRS document, right? You have the SRS document, and when you think that okay, when you're comparing with the SRS document, when you think that okay, some points or some functionality, some minute functionality is missed, for example, right? So that also you have to identify. That is a major purpose, right? See, normally you can categorize the two testing, right? Testing, I mean, categorize the testing into two types. One is verification, and another one is validation. What do you mean by verification? Verification means you have the SRS document, and then you have the product, right? What you will do, you check the tester. What he will do, he'll check the software and he'll matches with the SRS document. And if these things are same, if SRS document and the product are same, it's fine, right? If there is any error, if there is any conflicts in the SRS document, right, when you comparing, then it is going to be an error, right? Fine. So he can point it out, right? He can detect. He has detected an error. That's good. But there are possibilities that some of the some of the functionality may missed, right? So that is what is called as verification. You have a document and you have the software, you are verifying it. What about validation? So validation means based on the customer requirement, whether the software works or not. Based on the customer expectation, whether the software works or not. Customer is having some interest, right? So the requirement engineers, what they did, they get the information from the customer. Based on the customer information, they are preparing the requirements, right? So the tester, what he has to do is that he has to know how to verify it and how to validate it. Then only he can able to identify the gaps. Then only he can able to identify the gaps. What gaps? Missing requirements, right? Missing requirements. The requirements, for example, the requirements may be missed in the SRS document, or it may be missed in the software itself. So that should be able to identify by the tester, right? That is why the purpose of testing is to identify errors, gaps, or missing requirements in contrast to the actual requirements. Very important. Okay. Right. Next is So now, I mean, recently, for the past 5 to 6 years, automation testing is actually playing a major role. Right? So, what do you mean by automation testing? Actually, so automation testing means that helps the user to test various desktop, web, and mobile applications. Right? There are many possibilities to automated testing because if you are doing it in manual, right, it may take too much of time. So, for example, if you are testing a online shopping website, right? So, almost most of the time, right, you will be testing the same kind of test. For example, sign in, and then product buying path, then product delivery path, right? Likewise, product selecting path. All these things actually it will be common. Every time you'll be testing the same thing. So if you're having a manual tester, right, he'll be keep on doing the same work. Right. So if you are doing it in script, and if you are able to generate a report automatically, then it is possible to go for automation testing. Right. There are possibilities even in desktop, even in web, even in mobile application. It is possible. Okay. So one example I told is online shopping. What about others? Yeah, for example, say if there is a GUI testing, right, graphical user interface, the GUI won't be changed much. You will be defined it already, right? So testing can be easily done. That is, automation testing can be easily done. Performance testing, it is going to be same. Load testing is going to be same. API testing, right? It is going to be same. So you can simply write a script and you can just run it within 1 or 2 days, or maybe within half a day. You can able to complete your testing, generate a report, and you can give it to the developer. So why I'm telling this automated testing? Because as much as possible, if you are simplifying your test and identifying the bugs properly, then automated testing is a best solution. So your basic requirement of a tester is you have to identify the errors as early as possible, right? As quick as possible. That is what the basic requirement of a tester, right? So what are the automation testing softwares available, right? What are the automation testing softwares available? So I hope you all know about it. Selenium is there, JMeter is there, Load Runner is there, QTP is there. So Selenium is for mostly web-based testing tool. Yeah, if you are designing a website, if you want to test that website, right, you can able to easily create a testing tool, right? But the problem is that you have to write a lot of code, right? You have to write the scripting is very lengthy, and we have to write a lot of code. But in case of say one more was there, one more tool was there. It is called as Catalan. I was using that. It is a very good software because almost most of the work is automatically done by Catalan tool itself. Most of the codes. Only we have to change the basic part of it. Very easy to implement within 1 hour. If you are implementing the Selenium testing scripting in 1 week, we can use with the help of Catalan. We can able to implement in say 2 days or 3 days, maybe 1 day actually. Very easy to implement. So Selenium is a good open source software for web-based testing tool, right? JMeter is for initially it was designed for web-based application, and it extended to the next level, like say starting a dynamic resource applications, right? Say load testing, right? All these things you can able to use JMeter. And another famous one is there, that is Load Runner. It is for performance testing, system behavior and application testing, load testing. All this is done by the Load Runner application. QTP is also there. It's also a famous one. It is used for quality assurance and graphical user interface testing. That is what QTP. So if you are able to study one of the testing tool or more than once, like say testing Selenium and TestNG. TestNG is for generating the report. And if you study one load testing tool like Load Runner or JMeter, right, it will be good for you. So try to, if you are interested in testing field, you can select any of these tools, right? So combine you studied Selenium and Load Runner with TestNG like this, right? And basic is Java. You should know about Java. Okay, fine. So the next very important is that testable software. So when are you? I mean, when are you? When can you tell that this particular software is a testable software, right? This particular software is a testable software. I can tell that this software is good for testing, right? When will you decide it? Tell me the testing characteristics of a testable software, right? That is what these points. The first thing is operability. It means that it operates properly, right? So if the software works properly and perfectly, then it is ready for testing. Okay, the better it works, more efficiently it can be tested. Because say for example, if the software is partially working, means you won't be able to test all the test cases. Is it right? That is why the better it works, if it works properly as per the requirement, if it works properly, then we can able to efficiently test it. Right? That is what operability. The second step point is observability. Like say, when you are giving an input, let us say when you are giving an input and that software is producing an output, based on checking the results, if you are able to identify that the errors or say the working of it, then it is a good software. I mean, you have an input, you are giving an input to the software, and the software is producing an output. And when you are seeing that particular output, if you are able to identify, okay, it is working properly, or there is an error in that, like that, if you are able to observe it, then it is a good software. That is why it is what you see is what you test. Right? Next is controllability, the degree to which the testing can be automated and optimized. Say, if you are able to control the software control the software properly, then there is a room and there is a possibility for automated and optimized testing. Right? That is what the degree to which the testing can be automated. If you are able to control it, it can be automated. Right? Then decomposability, that is, testing can be targeted. It means that by controlling the scope of the testing, we can more quickly isolate problems and perform smarter retesting. Say decomposability, right? If you have the whole software and if you are able to decompose into small tasks or test cases, right? So that what we can do is that you can able to easily isolate the problems. Okay, for this particular testing, we can able to identify this particular problem. For this particular testing, we can able to identify this particular problem. Like that is why if you are decomposing it, into small parts or test cases, then you can able to easily test properly, right? So if the software can be able to decompose into small components or test cases, then it is a good software. So that you can able to identify the problems easily, right? Then second is simplicity. Reduce complex architecture and logic to simplify test. See, what is the simplicity, right? Forget about that text which I told now. Simplicity means what? If you have less number of tests, say for example, for a software, right? If you have say 5 tests, within this 5 tests, if you are able to check all the testing possibilities, right? Then that software is a good software. With the help of 5 testings, for example, that is minimum testing or less test cases, right? If you are able to identify the errors, if you are able to check the complete software, then it is a good software, right? So reduce complex architecture and logic to simplify tests. That is what the simplicity. Next is stability. Few changes are requested during testing. So, for example, while after doing the testing, right, you have given the test report, and few changes has been done, right? So, what you will do, you have to retest it, right? You have to retest it. So, while retesting it, right, if it is working as stable as possible, say anyway, you will be doing regression testing. What do you mean regression testing? You will be if you have a software and you have tested that software, right? And then you have given the report, and the developer, what he does is that he has slightly he has identified he understood the error and changed it, he corrected it, and again it came for testing, right? That is what QA check, quality control check, right? So it will come to QA team, and the QA team will again test it. So they won't test only that particular part, they have to test everything. That is the complete regression testing. Okay, so if you are doing few changes and then if you are able to execute the changes as fast as possible, right, then the stability of the software is good, right? So that is what stability here. And then understandability, right? The design should be easily understandable, right? Based on the understandability, we will be able to test it properly. That is why understandability is also a major characteristics, right? Fine. So these are the seven characteristics, characteristics for a testable software, right? This is not actually testing characteristics. This is a test characteristics of testable software, right? Fine. Now you have the testing characteristics. So what are the test characteristics? How will you tell that these are the good characteristics for testing, right? The first point is a good test has high probability of finding an error. So if you are a tester, and they'll be asking, say in the company, they'll be asking how much, what many number of defect you have identified, how many defects you have identified, how many defects you have raised. They'll ask, at least they'll tell at least one defect you have to raise, no other go. So a good test has a high probability of finding an error, right? A good test should have high probability of finding an error. A good test is not very important. A good test is not redundant. It means that every test, if you are testing, if you are executing a test, for example, right, it should have a purpose, right? If two tests is focusing on a single purpose, then it is not a good test. That is why every test should have a different purpose. Okay. Fine. Then a good test should be a best of breed, right? So tests that have a similar intent, time, and resource limitations. Say, if there is a possibility, right, that you can able to test it in a group, that means say parallel, you can able to execute 4 tests, 5 tests, then you can do it, because as early as possible you will be able to complete the test. And also you can able to identify the errors, because testing time should be very less. If the development time may be 3 or 4 months, but testing time say maybe 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days. That's it. Within that you have to give the report. That is why if there is a possibility to group the test, that is what is called as best of breed. Okay. If it is possible to group the test, then no issues. You have to check for the intent, time, and resource limitations. Then you can group the test and you can execute it, right? That is also a good test. A good test should be neither too simple nor too complex. A good test should be neither simple, right? If it is too simple, you may miss some errors. You may miss some errors. If it is too complex, right, it is difficult to identify errors. That is why a good test should neither too simple nor too complex. Ultimate aim is to identify the defects and errors. These are the 4 major characteristics of testing, right? I think you understood the difference between testable software and test characteristics, right? How are you telling that this is a testable software? This is the question. Okay, how are you telling that this software is a testable software? Okay, for that characteristics are listed here. Which are the good testing characteristics that you are listing out? Okay,